Hello and Merry Christmas. I'm Tom Wilkinson and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast aimed at intermediate to advanced level English learners. This episode is probably being released on Christmas Eve, so there is no better time to learn some Christmassy words. Learn some festive themed idioms, merry phrases and sayings to boost your Christmas vocabulary. But first, why not follow the Thinking in English Instagram, Thinking in English podcast, or the link is in the description. It's full of great vocabulary, grammar and pronunciation content. And you definitely should look at our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog, for all transcripts and more bonus content. Here is today's vocabulary list. As always, the written list is available in the description of the podcast and also on our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Intrinsic. Intrinsic. Being an extremely important and basic characteristic of a person or thing. For example, math is an intrinsic part of the school curriculum. To associate. To associate. To associate something is to connect someone or something in your mind with someone or something else. So, for example, most people associate this brand with good quality. Ecstatic. Ecstatic. If you are ecstatic, you are extremely happy. For example, the new president was greeted by an ecstatic crowd. Loosely. Loosely. Not exactly. For example, the film is loosely based on a novel by John Smith. Illogical. Illogical. Not reasonable, wise or practical. Usually because it's directed by the emotions rather than by careful thought. For example, it is an illogical statement because if one part is true, then the other must be false. Insignificant. Insignificant. Small or not noticeable, and therefore not considered important. Why bother arguing about such an insignificant amount of money? And finally, intention. Intention. Intention is something that you want and plan to do. For example, I have no intention of changing my plans just to fit in with his. Merry Christmas! This episode should be released on Christmas Eve, so I thought it was the perfect time to record a Christmas-themed podcast. Christmas is an incredibly important part of my country's culture, with special food, traditions and celebrations that only happen at this time of year. We've talked about the relationship between language and culture before, how changes in language can affect the culture, and how changes in culture can affect language. I'd recommend listening to the episode on the Oxford Dictionary Word of the Year, which focuses on this idea. But therefore, seeing as Christmas is such an intrinsic part of English culture, our language has changed to reflect this. There are phrases we only use at Christmas, idioms used to describe the winter season, and many expressions for this period. So I think it will be interesting to introduce you to a few of these phrases. However, remember that I am British. Christmas traditions around the world are different, and so is the language used to describe Christmas and influenced by Christmas. A white Christmas. Let's start with one of the most famous Christmas idioms, a white Christmas. You've probably heard this of a famous Christmas song of the same name. It comes from the fact that in much of the Christian world, Christmas takes place in winter, and there is a chance it will be snowing. If it snows on Christmas Day, it is a white Christmas. Many people associate Christmas with snow and winter, but this is obviously not true everywhere. It is in the middle of summer in places like Australia, which means Christmas is definitely not white there. In fact, even though I come from a cold country, I have never experienced a white Christmas. Moreover, in the UK, we can actually place bets on whether it will be a white Christmas, because it happens so rarely. Have you ever had a white Christmas? Christmas came early. How would you feel if Christmas arrived earlier than usual? I'd guess most people would be ecstatic. This is because Christmas is usually a happy holiday, with many people taking time off from work, receiving presents, and eating delicious food. However, Christmas is always on the 25th of December. It cannot come early. So when do we use this idiom? Well, this idiom is used when something really good happens, but it was completely unexpected. If you receive an excellent gift in November, maybe you'd say Christmas came early, because you received a really good but unexpected gift. I once received a job offer in early December, and it felt like Christmas came early that year. Good things come in small packages. The next saying is a little more loosely related to Christmas. However, it is a phrase that we can use at Christmas time. And Christmas is a time where people exchange a lot of gifts, packages, big and small. Good things come in small packages is an idiom that tells us not to judge something by its size. When I was a child, I always felt like the biggest present was the best present. But as I grew up, I realized that good things can come in small packages too. Now, I love books, watches, and socks, which are all gifts that come in small packages. Just because a package is small doesn't mean it is going to be good or bad. As Christmas is one of the most common times to exchange gifts, it is a useful idiom to remember. Nevertheless, we can use this idiom all year round. Actually, short people even use it to describe themselves sometimes. Deck the halls. This idiom is another from a famous Christmas carol. Deck the halls with bells of holly. To deck the halls means to decorate one's home with Christmas decorations. Decorating one's hall with branches from a holly tree is an old tradition, but we now use it to describe all types of decorations. Some people deck the halls and put up a Christmas tree really early, while others wait until Christmas Eve to deck their halls. How about you? Have you ever decked your halls for Christmas? Lit up like a Christmas tree. This is one of the strangest idioms connected to Christmas. Well, it actually has a few meanings. What do you think this idiom means? Well, whatever you thought, I'm guessing you didn't think about the first meaning I'm going to tell you. One of the most common usages of this idiom has nothing to do with decorating a Christmas tree. It is used to describe an intense and violent military attack on enemy positions. Think lots of bombs, explosions, and bullets are being used. For example, you could say the US Air Force lit the city up like a Christmas tree. This would mean There were lots of bright lights coming from explosions, fire, bullets. However, there are some more understandable ways to use this idiom. Apparently, if someone is lit up like a Christmas tree, it means they are overly dressed. However, I have not really heard this used before. It can also mean having bright lights. For example, the building was lit up like a Christmas tree, or the stadium was lit up like a Christmas tree. Like turkeys voting for Christmas. You probably know that turkeys are the meat Americans usually eat on Thanksgiving. But what do we eat on Christmas? In England, our Christmas meat is turkey. For most people, Christmas is probably the only time we eat turkey in the UK. So imagine you were a turkey. Would you vote for or choose Christmas? Turkeys are eaten at Christmas. So it would be illogical for the turkeys to vote for Christmas. It is a choice that will only end badly for those turkeys. Therefore, the idiom, like turkeys voting for Christmas, is used when someone accepts a situation that will have a bad outcome for them. Like turkeys voting for Christmas, it's not going to end well. It's the thought that counts. The final idiom I'm going to introduce today is it's the thought that counts. This is such a common phrase in English that I only recently realized that it's an idiom and difficult for learners to understand the meaning. This idiom refers to the fact that it's the kindness behind an act that matters, however imperfect or insignificant it may be. Good or kind intentions are the most important thing, even if what you do or give someone is not perfect. Even when people do things for you and give you things that you don't actually want, you must always remember that it's the thought that counts. It's the thought that counts, not the present they give. So here is today's final thought. On today's episode, I have tried to introduce a few Christmas-related idioms and phrases. Some of these, like deck the halls and white Christmas, are only useful at this time of year. Others, such as it's the thought that counts and good things come in small packages, can be used all year round. Which idiom do you find the most interesting? Which one are you planning to use this Christmas? For listening to this Christmas special episode of Thinking in English. Please share with your friends, check out our social media links in the description and send us a message. We really appreciate all of your feedback, and if you have any ideas for topics, podcast guests, or other learning formats, please let us know. And please leave us a rating. We're now on Instagram, and I'm producing daily content focusing on improving your vocabulary, so make sure you check out the Thinking in English page. Thinking in English podcast on Instagram, or the link is in the description. Instagram is also probably the best way to contact me. And all transcripts of the podcast are now available on the Thinking in English blog. The vocabulary lists, comprehension questions, and articles are there for you to read. The link is in the description, so please check it out. Merry Christmas. See you next time.